Reverend Wayne, welcome.
Thank you, fellow light bearers. And you are. In fact, that's kind of the title of the talk that just kind of bloomed up. It's called Light Bearers in the Shadows of Self-Imposed Darkness. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Well, from Ephesians 5, it goes like this. For at one time you were darkness, but now you are the light in the Lord. Walk as the children of the light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good. You see, I believe we are all ready to awaken to that truth of who we are, powerful creators of experience. And there's also a fundamental delusion that your life is not a purposeful creation of God. Instead, we're separate from God, and yet, even worse, we're flawed. I found out in the second grade that I was going to be a speaker somewhere, sometime, but I found out that speaking longer and louder does not go well for the teacher. So I was escorted outside, and I actually shut down so that I wouldn't be a vocalized person very much. So I diminished myself unknowingly. Then I was an acolyte at church, and this was the Methodist church. And I had my white little robe on and carried the torch to light the candles. And during one Sunday service, it was Communion Sunday. And I sat there at the altar with my little bread and my little cup of grape juice, waiting to find this great experience. And nothing happened. I felt unworthy, and that carried for a while. And I couldn't figure out why I hadn't been, quote, anointed. It was that fear. You know, instead of being born in our self-inflicted nonsense, S-I-N, consider this, we were actually born asleep as to who we are on purpose and to create an experience. And when we open ourselves up and awaken to that light, we are creators. And we are divinely inspired to do so. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, "Do not be too timid and squeamish about your actions. All life is an experience. And the more experiences and experiments we are, make us better." From the book of Peter, we need to have our minds stirred. We need to remember. That's unusual to hear that from a Bible. But see, as co-creators, we are learning that there's a natural byproduct in the symptom of creating. And the shift to being a divinely sanctioned creator is a very powerful perspective. Now, does this awareness have the potential to affect your daily life? You bet. You bet. Because see, admitting our powerfulness can be very intimidating, not only for us, but for those around us. We rather have a false sense of security and safety, believing that we have no power. And this makes us victims. It gives us reason to hide in the shadows. Well, where was I holding back and not expressing my life fully, as completely as my true self? Well, I was fear-based to speak out. I had learned that early. I even learned it at a midnight Christmas Eve Mass at the Episcopal Church that I went to with friends. They wanted to have communion. And because I was a Methodist, I thought that if I was going to take communion, I was going to go to hell. And so I didn't participate. And that carried through for a while. The first time that I actually had a little epiphany was in '69 when I was in Vietnam. I had been there about 2 weeks, and I came back from the 12-hour shift of 6 days a week, and I found on my pillow a packet of sugar cane, and I didn't know where it came from. So the next day, I was actually off for the day, and I sought out the mama-san. I said, you know, do you do this for everybody? You know, this is sugar cane. And she said, oh no, you have special gold light about you. And that was my first epiphany. Well, it was more of an epiph because it was not quite there yet. After I served my 11 months and 8 days, I came back and came to Chico, where I grew up. That spring, I started school again, finished my degree, and get my teaching credential. And during that time, I was not really happy. I drank fairly heavily, and it was not water, okay? I did not like myself, and it was in the potential of getting my degree and my credential. And then my 10-year reunion from high school came about, and this is where my second epiphany began to help me evolve, so to speak, because I met then was going to be my first wife. And we knew each other earlier in high school and junior high. But for me, I was a very shy person. And so the image was that I was stuck up. No, I didn't date in high school. That's how shy I was. I didn't feel like I was worthy enough. Well, Sherry came back into my life. And that's how I became acquainted with New Age phenomenon and unity and religious science. And my life was filled with many experiences, including crystals, other phenomenon that we do experience sometimes. And 17 years later, that came to a crashing halt. Then I moved to the Visalia area and found the Religious Science Center there. And that really started to help change my life experience. That's where I met my second wife. She was actually a practitioner. And this was the first time that I just kind of walked in, but I felt at home. And it was a wonderful homecoming. And from there, things moved forward. My life had changed, and eventually I started taking classes. Moving forward, I was in my third year as the practitioner studies, and there was some family issues going on. I had felt separated from my family, and so my back was out physically because I was not feeling supported. And then I developed a huge rash and took oatmeal baths. And during that time, as a practitioner in training, I was also taking a class called Emotional Clarity. And this was being handled by the affiliated New Thought Network, ANTN, which we are here truly affiliated with. And the teachers had a nice thick book on this emotional clearing. And I called them and I said, okay, help me get clear. What's going on? And they said, okay, get comfortable, do your meditation, and then ask your higher self what's going on. And so I did. And I sat down and I started doing a little automatic writing, because that's what you were supposed to be doing with your non-dominant hand. Well, what came out was the fact that when I was 16, I had nephritis and was hospitalized for 3 days. And the rash that I was experiencing was it being released through all of my pores. And that was a real surprise. And then what was next, it came out as saying, now, on to the ministry. Whew. Truth chills there. And so I decided to venture further on. And in 1998, Jackie and I moved here actually on Halloween of 98, which was a great time to start something. And that's when we had started our ministry. So rather than feeling like a victim, how about we consider ourselves differently now, as you would perceive life, knowing that it's the divine intention trying to blossom through each one of us. Now, I now look at my life as a grand journey of discovering the truth and experiencing what I'm going through. You see, our founder said this: the first great discovery man made was he could think. And that was the first day he said, I am. We've heard that before. It comes right from the text. Melody Beattie said it this way: I think, therefore I am codependent. But truly there's only one truth, and that truth is that our divine awareness discovers. Since we're all creators of our reality, don't bother trying to defend your truth or try to convince others to make it theirs, because their truth is as equal true. Ultimately, we want to know about the truth of ourselves. All acts of creation reflect and through our individual creations. So that's how we come to know we are. This is the journey of the coming into wholeness with your divine self. And it's a spiritual awakening, bless you, that connects your life to your soul. Isn't that right? All right, good. And pursuing personal growth leads to greater self-awareness. Our shadow self. Self-reflection and introspection reveals the hidden parts of ourselves so that even though we may not be consciously aware, but essential to knowing and acknowledging and address to continue progressing toward our highest self and the version that we express. I'm still a work in progress, okay? And I know we all are in one level or another. Richard Rohr said this: the closer you get to the light, the more your shadow sees you. And I have to thank all the people in my life for helping me to get where I am today. And especially one here, Reverend Diane. Okay? Because I took her grief recovery class. Okay? Twice! Not once, but twice. And I'm so thankful for you being part of my journey. Since then, life has really been blossoming even more. And this teacher is extraordinary. This teaching. I'm not necessarily the teacher, okay? However, I will accept the accolades here and now. We know that tomorrow is Memorial Day. And in 1868, it came after the Civil War, the women there started laying wreaths on the graves of all the Union soldiers and the Confederate soldiers. And they called that Decoration Day. That has since evolved to Memorial Day, a day to remember all the people who had died in defense of our country. Page 2. Memorial Day is tomorrow. And last Saturday, I got a text message from Reverend Elizabeth asking if I would consider speaking today. So I hurried up. I absolutely said, yes, I'm available. That came up last Sunday. And it was a welcoming homecoming. So I really feel that here. And I felt it with Frank and Terry and many other people. Coming home, I got a telephone call. I was asked to do a memorial service the next day. And it was a family who needed somebody, and they found me online somehow, because although I'm a wedding officiant, that's most of what I do, but I do memorials and anniversaries. Well, within 24 hours, I had put together a semblance of a ceremony. And this was about a 50-year-old mother who left her physical body due to epilepsy. And it was the daughter who contacted me And so we talked a little bit, and then when they showed up, I found out who else was going to be there. One of the people was her fiance of 21 years, well, 5 years, but they knew each other for 21 years. And he brought his fishing pole with him, because that's one thing that they liked to do. And then grandmother showed up as well. And she was in a wheelchair, and we were on the beach in Pismo Beach. And the first thing that I shared with her was that the comment from what my first mother-in-law had said: we don't expect to outlive our children. And she shared a story that it goes like this. It was just a couple of weeks after her daughter had died. She was in her wheelchair looking out over the avenues, and this was in Fresno. The sky was just absolutely blue. And then one cloud showed up. It was a white cloud. And there was some blue in the center. And she kept looking at it and looking at it. And she couldn't believe her eyes. And so she asked her caregiver, "Come and see this cloud." And she did. And she said, "Oh, that's a nice white cloud. It's the only cloud in the sky. And look at what's going on inside." It was a blue-shaped heart. And of course, that helped alleviate the mother. They had been raised Pentecostal, but they weren't necessarily practicing it. So what I had to share was wonderful. And during this ceremony itself, I had the inspiration to share something that I did when I was a teacher at the state hospital at Tascadero, and what we also did at Corcoran State Prison. And this is going to be an audience participation part. Now, what about Travis? Okay, give me a T. Give me an R. Ready. A. Awesome. Yes, yes. V. Valuable. Vulnerable. Yes, yes. Give me an I. What? Inspirational, absolutely. Instrumental. Yeah. Intuitive. Kind of like what Jimmy is. Screaming Jimmy. And an S. Splendid. Spectacular. Super. Soulful. Sensitive. Sincere. That's what comes to this place every week. Elizabeth and Travis. Got just a little bit more to share. This is actually going to be the Lord's Prayer translated from Aramaic. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each bring needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth power and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. And I'm going to finish with an Apache blessing. May the sun bring you new energy. May the moon softly restore you by night. May the rain wash away your worries, and may the breeze blow new strength into your being. I want to thank you for taking the time and your effort for being here. And as John Cabot would say, wherever you go, there you are. Namaste.